The recent meeting between Narendra Modi and Donald Trump wasn't just bad for India, it was an outright embarrassment. Anyone who expected Modi to walk in as a strong leader representing India's interests got a rude awakening when they saw him reduced to little more than a spectator in Trump's one-man show. Instead of standing up for India, Modi spent most of the meeting either grinning like an overexcited fan or awkwardly nodding along as Trump steamrolled through the conversation. What should have been a moment for India to assert itself on the global stage turned into a cringe-worthy display of one-sided diplomacy, where Trump dictated terms, mocked Indian journalists, and walked away with everything he wanted, while Modi got absolutely nothing in return. Let's start with trade, which was one of the biggest topics of the meeting. Trump, in his usual aggressive style, went on one of his classic rants about how India is the tariff king, complaining about how unfair trade practices are hurting American businesses. He outright threatened to impose even higher tariffs on Indian exports, unless India slashed its own import duties on American products. And what did Modi do? Did he stand up for India's interests? Did he remind Trump that India is an important economic power in its own right? Nope. He just sat there, nodding and smiling, while Trump essentially dictated the terms of India's trade policies. For months, India has been trying to negotiate for the reinstatement of the Generalized System of Preferences, a trade program that gave Indian exporters duty-free access to the US market. The Trump administration revoked India's GSP status in 2019, dealing a massive blow to Indian businesses. This meeting was Modi's chance to demand its return. Instead, he barely brought it up. Trump dominated the conversation, making it clear that India would have to earn better trade terms by making more concessions. In other words, Trump walked in with all the demands, and Modi just sat there taking notes like a student at a business seminar. As if getting bulldozed on trade wasn't enough, Modi also got pushed around on defense deals. Trump is desperate to sell more American-made weapons, and his administration has been aggressively pushing India to buy the F-35 fighter jets. There's just one problem. Even US military experts have raised serious concerns about the F-35S, with critics, including Elon Musk, calling them junk. These jets are incredibly expensive, require heavy maintenance, and have suffered from technical failures. Meanwhile, Russia, India's longtime defense partner, is offering India the Su-57, a far more practical and cost-effective option. Russia is even willing to manufacture the aircraft in India under the Make in India initiative, ensuring that the deal benefits Indian industries. But instead of standing his ground and making a rational decision in India's best interest, Modi once again acted like he was more interested in pleasing Trump than negotiating a smart defense deal.
Check, check, check one, check two, check, check.
Even worse, Trump made it clear that India's growing defense relationship with Russia is a problem, and that the US expects India to cut ties with Moscow. This is pure hypocrisy, coming from the same country that regularly buys Russian oil and negotiates with Russia when it suits American interests. But of course, Modi had no strong response. He just nodded along as if taking orders. If the trade and defense humiliations weren't bad enough, Trump even managed to make fun of India right in front of Modi, and Modi let it happen. During the press conference, an Indian journalist tried to ask a question in English, struggling slightly with the pronunciation. Instead of responding professionally, Trump smirked and openly mocked the reporter's accent, before moving on as if the question wasn't even worth answering. And what did Modi do? Did he call out Trump's blatant disrespect for Indian journalists? Did he even look remotely embarrassed? No, he laughed. That's right, Modi giggled along with Trump like a sidekick in a bad comedy sketch. Imagine being the leader of a nation of 1.4 billion people and watching the president of another country mock your own citizens, then laughing along with him instead of standing up for your people. It was one of the most pathetic moments of the entire meeting. Another major takeaway from this meeting was how Trump expects India to become a pawn in America's foreign policy chess game. He made it very clear that he wants India to take a much stronger stance against China, even implying that India should fully align with the US on global conflicts. Now, anyone with a basic understanding of diplomacy knows that India has always tried to maintain a balanced foreign policy, keeping strong relationships with multiple global powers instead of blindly following any one country. But once again, Modi had no real pushback. Trump also pressured Modi to reduce India's reliance on Russian oil and weapons. This is absurd because the US itself has been negotiating oil deals with Russia behind closed doors, despite all the public rhetoric. But while other world leaders push back and negotiate their own terms, Modi just sat there listening like a student getting a lecture from his teacher. After all of this, what did India actually gain from the meeting? Absolutely nothing. No breakthrough on trade, no reinstatement of GSP, no solid defense deal that benefits India, no diplomatic wins, nothing. Meanwhile, the United States got everything it wanted. Trump bullied Modi on trade, pressured him into costly defense purchases, mocked Indian journalists and put India in a tough spot geopolitically, all while Modi stood there nodding like an obedient student. This wasn't diplomacy. This was Modi getting publicly humiliated on the world stage. If this is what he considers a successful meeting, then I'd hate to see what failure looks like. If anyone thought of India as a superpower, this absolute spanking from Trump to Modi, where Modi just sat back and smiled and laughed, should be enough to wake them up. The United States simply doesn't view India with any respect, and this meeting made that very clear. The only positive thing people could say about Modi in the meeting was how Trump looked so happy being with Modi. Well, of course he's going to be happy when he got everything he could have wanted out of the meeting and gave absolutely nothing to the other side. If you want to see more videos on similar topics, please make sure to like and subscribe.